Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and it's time finally for another MTG Mistakes video. This topic was something I kind of hit on before, but I didn't really take this spin on it, so I figured, taking another approach to kind of saying the same thing would probably be beneficial and kind of worth its own video. When you're testing a deck, or when you go to F&M and you think your deck is good, you think you got it worked out, and then you do poorly, don't just assume automatically at that sample size, as they call it, that the deck is bad. Because of the design of Magic the Gathering, the variance from luck, as they call it, is going to be enormous. I mean, it depends deck to deck because, if you're literally just running 40 creatures and 20 lands, and they're just all lifelinkers, that would actually be a really funny deck. But that's your deck strategy. It's so unlikely to backfire. I think that I heard something like the universal number of the amount of games the average deck would get mana screwed or mana flooded is like 9% or something like that. I don't know, I just heard that number thrown around, but think about it. 1 in 10 games you're going to lose because something related to just the luck of shuffling and the luck of the draw is going to lose you the game. So if you're incredibly unlucky and, just the right cards don't meet up at the right time, on a very small scale, do not assume that your deck is built wrong. You could do all, the math and the planning and I guess I'll stop short of saying play test it, because if you jump on X-Mage and play 30 games and then you go lose 3 times at F&M and you won the 30 games, you're not going to assume that out of 33 games, all of a sudden the 3 at F&M are more important. No, but if you just built the deck, you for some reason didn't test it, which this whole video is invalidated by the fact that you could test a deck on a very high volume online very quickly. Or better yet, instead of a human opponent, because they're slow as hell, play it against the computer. I mean, you don't need to know that you can beat the computer. You need to know that your deck works, just period, in a vacuum. Unfortunately, you have to have somebody to play against. So just play against some blah dummy deck with just, some walls, some creatures, maybe some flyers, whatever, just something typical, average, just vanilla blah deck. Not like, give them 5 kill spells and 5 death touchers. That would not be a very good deck testing deck. And then, just test it at the high volume. So on the flip side, what people often mistakenly do is they build a deck, they never play with their friends before F&M, or they play 1 or 2 games or something, so they don't really truly test it. So then they go there and they lose, they go 1 in 3. We'll say it's 4 rounds, they go 1 in 3, and they lost, and then lost 1-1. I mean, that's about as bad as you can do without just getting wiped. So people take that sample size of 9 games, which sounds like a lot, but it really, really, really isn't. And they say, okay, what happened? Okay, I was flooded on mana. I need to go from 21 lands down to 20. No, you very rarely need to go from 21 to 20. That would be a bad idea. What you should do, as opposed to just making assumptions based on small scale, which is the mistake that everybody makes, realize that there is a huge luck variance. Luck is huge. I mean, it's like everything in Magic the Gathering. You can only do so much. If you are confident that you made no mistakes and you made no decisions incorrectly, like looking back, you're like, if I would have killed this, I wouldn't have lost the game. Or, if I would have mulliganed, which that's the number one most common thing people do is they screw up. They probably should have mulliganed, instead they kept it. Okay, so if you can look back to the start of the game and say, no, that was a solid hand. I started with what I needed. It was an acceptable hand within the math. The probability stated that the deck should have worked, and I lost because I pulled nothing but spells and no creatures. That is going to happen once in a while, and the more complex your deck is, the more likely it is to happen. So I'm not saying just run the most simplistic decks ever, although, I mean, that is a strategy. It is a legitimate strategy. I'm just not saying everybody should do that. But just realize that, I mean, not even a combo deck. I mean, I always use this as an example. 20 boost spells, 20 heroic creatures, 20 lands. I basically built a very slight variation of that deck. I went to F&M with it. And one game I pulled not enough lands, couldn't get anything out. Another game I pulled too many lands. Another game I pulled nothing but spells. Another game I pulled nothing but creatures. If you paid 3 mana for a 1/1 heroic creature and then didn't pull a single boost spell all game, yeah, you're going to lose. Okay, that's just bad luck. But you're waiting for, I mean, if you think about it, you're waiting for like 2 or more lands, 2 or more creatures, and 2 or more spells to be drawn in the first 3 turns. So that's 10 total cards. I'm not even going to do the math on it because you should be able to estimate it in your head, 5, 10, 15% of the time, whatever, you're going to not get that. Now, in that case, if it keeps happening, you almost definitely should have mulliganed and didn't. But if you mulliganed to 5 or 6 every game and then just started because it was like, okay, fine, a 3-cost creature, another 3-cost creature, and 3 lands. All right, and then you just never pull a spell. I mean, that's luck. There's nothing you can do about that. Except that there is commonly something that most players can do about it. Learn to shuffle better. Learn to randomize your deck better. If you did the complex math, the draw luck, the hypergeometric distribution, everything, you know the probability of your deck, and it is fine-tuned down to the very last card to have exactly the right amount of mana, the right amount of spells, the right amount of like control and scry and draw and everything so that it's optimized to work perfectly. At that point, it's out of your hands. So just realize that if the deck backfires a couple times, it is just bad luck. Luck is so huge, and you cannot interpret bad luck as being a bad player, making bad decisions, or building a bad deck if you know for certain with logic and math that you did not make a mistake. And that is what most of the pro players will tell you. In fact, if you ask the pro players, because somebody did this in an interview, they went around and asked a whole bunch, what is your least favorite part about Magic? Or what's your least favorite part about, losing a tournament? Or why do you lose tournaments the most? They all say the same thing, except for one. Luck. It's just draw luck. And they almost always just blame lands, just simply lands, having lands in the deck. Because, you look at the other games and you just... like you go up a tier, you get crystals or whatever, and it's all automatic. Whatever the energy is in the game, it's either automatic or it's much more likely to occur. Having lands in the deck and be part of the deck, and yet you need them every single game, just opens you up to losing X% of the time. That's just simply how probability works. You can mulligan your butt off when it, shows its nasty face, so it's a 1-land hand. Okay, ditch it, mulligan. Everybody knows that. But at a certain point, you're going to mull to 5 and still not have enough lands. So the number one complaint is, oh my gosh, I had 8 straight wins and then, 6 more straight wins. Actually, that would be a pretty good record. Day 2 starts, round 1, and you lose because you just couldn't get lands on the field. It's nothing about your deck design if you're confident that your deck design is perfect. So you got to have the math and the logic to, back it up. And if you go through the whole game and look at your decisions and say, was that the right decision? Should I have, kept this mulligan or mulliganed it? Or kept this hand or mulliganed it? Should I have used the removal spell on this or kept it in my hand? Should I have cast this first and then that creature later? Would that have been a wiser decision? And not just, through the 2020, hindsight, like, oh, I wish I would have done that, but it actually was a smarter decision at the time, so, don't consider that. Like, if you blew up a 5-5 instead of a 2-2, and then it turns out later in the game that you shouldn't have done that, no, you still at the time should have done that. I mean, yes, blow up the bigger creature, unless you had a damn good reason or you could predict the future and knew that some weird combo was going to go off with the 2-2, or that it was going to get resurrected from the graveyard and the 2-2 wouldn't have, or, something like that. If you didn't have that information at the time, you still did make the correct decision based on the information that you had. And also, based on the current board state. So if you're confident that your deck is perfect, you're confident that your decisions were perfect, which, they should be if you're just a moderately good to pretty good player. I mean, I only make about 2 mistakes per entire F&M. I know because I pay attention and count them and memorize them so I don't make them again, obviously. So sparing that, if you just cannot get out land, because people are like, I got 24 lands in my deck and I got land screwed, 4 games out of 10. I'm going to dump in 2 more lands. No, the math says do not dump in, 26 lands. No, you probably shouldn't go up to 26. You know your mana curve, you know the average cast cost, and you know the consequences of not getting to 3, 4, and 5, and then based on the power and importance of the spells that cost 3, 4, and 5. Weigh that against their probability of being drawn and then the probability of getting shorted on mana and perfect your deck. Simple. I mean, the math, it's hard, but it's not that hard. So don't, take results that happened in real life on the small scale or even on a medium scale. I mean, unless you played 1,000 games, you don't know how your deck's really going to work. If you played 5 games, that's nothing. You shouldn't even draw anything from that. When people say they're play testing a deck, they mean they're not missing triggers, they're not making the wrong decision, not, oh, I'm seeing if I have the right amount of land. No, that's what math is for. You don't need to play test that. So I guess I would say never use real life results to contradict what the mathematics and the probabilities say. And if they are not ever meeting up and you keep seeing recurring problems that mathematically should not be there, like you keep getting something happening that's only a 1 in 10 chance, but it's happening way more than 1 in 10. Well, that's simple. learn how to shuffle because you are shuffling patterns into your library. Oh, that, or you're like a 1 in a billion level unlucky, but I doubt it. The way I always tell people is if your deck isn't randomized, if it isn't random, then you're not going to get what the probabilities suggest as a result. I mean, that's really, really, really obvious if you know how probability works. It's like, oh, if you're flipping a coin and it comes up, 65% heads instead of tails, then guess what? You've probably got some kind of weight balance or a dent in the coin or something. You're not starting with a random thing. It's not a random circumstance, so you're going to get skewed results. Simple as that. So a lot of people they sweep up their land pile, plop it down on top of their deck, and then they shuffle but not properly, and then they keep hitting mana pockets. Well, yeah, that's you. So sparing all that, sparing mistakes, sparing mulligan decisions, sparing deck building and math, you know all that's perfect, and you know you're doing well enough at the game. Luck, luck, luck. Do not let luck indicate what you should change in your deck. I don't care if 3 games, 4 games, 5 games just backfired for the same reason. That's just, okay, it's luck, it's variance, whatever. Too bad for you. I mean, some days you just can't pull land. It's just whatever. If your math suggests you do have the correct amount of lands in, do not throw in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more lands just because of a result from a couple games. That is so stupid. At any tournament, expect luck to bite you in the butt a certain amount of times, but remember, it's going to bite your opponents too, so it should technically even out. That's not exactly how luck and probability works, but, well, I don't know. It's a really simple way of saying it instead of drawing big graphs and crap. Also, in general, the universal law of probability, do not forget that past results do not influence future results in any way whatsoever. That is a law of physics in the universe. If you got mana screwed on your first 3 games, do not expect anything different than exact probability results to happen in the next couple games. Your last couple games have no bearing on the future games. So that's just one more reason that if you're sure everything is perfect, you're absolutely sure that you did not make a mistake in deck building or playing, and you keep losing for a certain reason or different reasons or all different reasons or whatever. I mean, unless you can blame the sleeves or your shuffling, no, it was just luck biting you. You just had a bad day. Don't let anybody who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about tell you that luck plays no factor whatsoever in Magic. I mean, you even talk to a professional poker player. They'll tell you bluffing, reading other players, and generally just giving yourself, let's say, a 10% advantage overall. You're playing 10% better and making 10% smarter decisions than the next guy. 10% is enough to run an entire tournament, okay? So that's why they'll have books about how to just improve by 0.5% and then just make this decision a little bit better. Okay, now you're 0.1% better. The more you build up just this gradual little outplaying everybody, the better. But a lot of pros that get kicked out in the 1035th spot will tell you, I was outplaying everybody, but you can only bluff so many damn times. I couldn't pull any cards. The good cards did not come my way today. You can't just say it's 100% skill. Once in a while, the luck is just not on your side. And remember, as the sample size gets smaller, that's when the variance gets bigger. That's the other universal law of probability. If you flip a coin 10 times, you're probably not going to get 5 heads and 5 tails. It could be 7 and 3. If you flip a coin 100 times, do you really think it's going to be 70-30? No, not if your coin's not broken. It might be 53-47 or 55-45, but I mean, you're not going to get 95-5. So if you play 10 games of Magic, I mean, that's nothing. That's such a stupidly small sample size. You cannot base, what happened because of luck and variance and probability. You can't use that as a basis for modifying your deck and making changes to it. And I see people do that all the time. It is such a stupidly common mistake that people make. Trust the math. Have 100% faith in the math and the probability that you did ahead of time, and just ignore the results. Unless you're an idiot and you keep making mistakes. Then pay very close attention to the results and blame yourself. But then again, it's not that hard with at least some decks to play Magic completely, absolutely perfectly, and make 0 decision flaws. So, then it's back to luck. It's just 100% luck. Don't let anybody tell you different. They're probably just lying to give themselves a better position at the next tournament and just to spread misinformation because they think it's funny and they laugh at it because they're a sociopath. Very, very typical sociopathic behavior. But even from just long-time players, I've heard people say, well, just play it a couple times to see how it does and then adjust your mana base from there. Yeah, play 4 games and then use those results to adjust your mana base. Are you kidding me? How about you use math? Oh, it's just unbelievable. I've just heard such stupid statements like that at F&M. I've got to start writing them down so I can make more from this series. And if you guys have an idea that I haven't covered yet, which, I mean, this has got to be like number 35 or something in this series. I don't even know. I can't imagine what I haven't hit on at this point. But this one, oh yeah, I probably should have hit on it earlier. But if you have any suggestions that I haven't covered yet, leave them down in the comments section, and I will see you guys next video.